Welcome to the TRXL podcast. I'm Evan Troxel, and in this episode, I welcome Dave Gilmore. Dave is the president and CEO of Design Intelligence, where he works closely with leadership teams across the built environment to address the profound and accelerating changes happening within our profession. He's also a writer, speaker, and trusted advisor to firm leaders, bringing a no-nonsense perspective on transformation, leadership, and strategic clarity. As I expected when I invited Dave to join me, this candid conversation is a wake-up call. He brings sharp insight and blunt truth about where the AEC industry is falling short and what needs to happen next, just as I knew he would. Whether it's outdated business models, fragile leadership, or the misplaced belief that technology alone will save us, Dave doesn't hold back. He challenges us to get uncomfortable, to lean into curiosity, and to reclaim agency over the future. In this episode, we explore the topics of why firms must disrupt themselves before they get disrupted, the crisis of leadership in the AEC industry, how technology is not the disruptor, the lack of preparation is, the danger of viewing innovation as a department rather than a mindset, the factory model of production and how it limits architectural practice, why digital transformation is a leadership issue, not a technology one, the consequences of outsourcing your thinking to consultants and vendors, how psychological safety and trust drive meaningful change, why architects must embrace entrepreneurial thinking, the importance of curiosity and emotional intelligence in leadership, and as usual, there's an extensive amount of additional information in the show notes, so please be sure to check that out. You can find them directly in your podcast app if you're a supporting member of TRXL Plus, and if you're a free member, you can find them over on the website, which is trxl.co. Lastly, you can really help me out here on the podcast by sharing these episodes with your colleagues and by commenting and sharing on my LinkedIn posts about them. You can also leave a comment over on YouTube and engage with me and the other listeners there. I came away from this conversation inspired, and I think you will too. So now without further ado, I bring you my conversation with Dave Gilmore. Dave Gilmore, welcome to the podcast. It's been a while since we've seen each other.
It has, but what an exciting thing. Been watching your programming over the last few years, and you took an idea, you nurtured it, you build a plan around it, and voila, look at you. You're just all over the place. It's been really extraordinary.
Thank you very much. It's the 5-year-long overnight success, right? So just celebrated 5 years, just hit 200 episodes. I swear after 10 episodes, I thought, I'm done. Who else can I interview? And now here you are. So wow. I had to pay my dues before I invited Dave Gilmore on.
Well, thank you so much. Yeah, thanks. People are going to think it's the guy from Pink Floyd, but it's not.
Right. I love Pink Floyd. All right. So I wanted to talk strategy for architects, but before we talk about strategy, I have some burning questions that were prompted by another guest on the show that I think will be really fun to have a candid conversation around the current state of the AEC industry and maybe the future of it. Before we do that, can you just give a quick overview of what you've been up to since I've seen you maybe in the last 5 years? What have you been doing?
Yeah, coming out of the pandemic, of course, Design Intelligence, the Design Futures Council was disrupted like everyone else, though. It was interesting in 2020. I remember getting home from London the day before the big boom happened here. It was already happening in London. There had already been some folks from the East come in to London, and there was reports of this thing happening, and it was all, oh. So I was thinking, I got to get out here and go to the United States.
Get home.
Welcome to the idea of pandemic, right?
Yeah.
And so got back, and within a few weeks, of course, the world was unraveling and we were seeing things. We had a very interesting experience because in the months following April, everybody thought it kind of lifted in the summer, and then we got another wave of it, and then they thought it was over, and then we entered 21 and we got another wave of it, So in the 12 months from April all the way to the following March, we ended up having these kind of Zoom conversations with 400 different firms.
Mm-hmm.
The phone was ringing off the hook. I'd get on these things. It was honestly a labor of love because people were just like, what do? We don't even know what to do. We don't even know how to think about.
How many times did
ourselves.
you hear the word uncertainty during during those phone
Yeah,
calls?
yeah.
Yes.
And unprecedented, right?
Yeah.
Unprecedented and uncertainty. It was everywhere, and so we had quite a labor of love, spending time with lots of executives and folks talking about not the moment, but how are you going to use this downtime to reemerge?
Right.
And in reality, most did not. They just kept with the same old, and hoped that somehow they would come out. But others really used this event as a pivot in their culture, how they thought about business, how they thought about what their priorities and what was most important to them. It was an extraordinary, and there's a clear dichotomy between those two genre firms that we saw emerge. And of course, here we are, little bit over 5 years later, and you can clearly see that what has happened in the industry. You see folks who were here and are now here in size, impact, quality, technology adoption, et cetera. And then you can still see even some very storied firms, da-doop, 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 just kind of making along. They haven't made those leaps. And I'm not talking about business success only. I'm talking about societal impact, clarity around their own culture inside their firms, multiple variables that we watch and assess in firms. So yeah, it's been an exciting last 5 years. At Design Intelligence, we have the opportunity to speak into a lot of firms. We have this advisory business that we do, and we take limited client engagements because you can edit this out if you want to, but if somebody wants to do a quick and dirty strategy, we say, go see PSMJ. If you want to do authentic transformation, you're rethinking your business and maybe even what it is you're going to bring to market and how you're going to change, then we'd love to spend that time with you. And so we have been unbelievably busy for these last several years. And right now, I think Laura from my staff and I were just talking about that this week. I think we're involved in 9 advisory engagements simultaneously right now.
Yeah.
And that they're not Zoom calls. These are, on the ground, spending time with principals and partners and leaders within firms. So it's been very, very busy. And then, of course, we've been the initiators and sponsors of the Design Futures Council for 33 years. And the council is doing very well. We have a lot of participation. And so lots of things happening, and on it goes. But there is no end to the disruption that's hit this industry.
Yep.
And it's moved, I believe, from disruption to destruction. Not all bad, but that's where we really are. Yeah.
Burn it down and start over. I'm curious what you mean by that. So when you say destruction, I agree. It's not all bad. And I think things do have to come to a point for a new idea to actually emerge, because we get straddled to those old ideas and it's really hard to let go. And then they are the boat anchor that holds you in those places, right? So I'm just curious, what do you mean when you say destruction is not all bad, and that you are seeing disruption turn into destruction?
So if I zoom out from AEC into the broader world, of course, we have a new executive administration in the United States government at this point. You would think it had been going for 4 or 5 years at this point, but it's only been a few months. It's extraordinary, the amount of change that's occurred. Almost all of it is disruptive, without a question. Yet much of it has moved to destructive. And the jury is still out as to whether that is legitimate destruction towards some recreative positive outcome that has sustainability to it, a sustained value, or whether it is destruction for destruction's sake. And we still don't know yet at this point. I was saying to an audience earlier in the year, we publish a thing on a webcast like this called the Design Intelligence Foresight Report each year. And it's a broadcast we do, and it's our look into the economics, the market of multiple markets around the world, as well as the vertical services that the industry provides. And I was asked a question with Dave, what is your prediction of that? And I said, we don't predict. Any fool can predict, and particularly in this new administration, make a prediction and they'll go the exact opposite to prove your prediction wrong.
Yep.
So we're not in the prediction business. We're in the economics business, which is different because we really look at the long-term intermediate trends that kind of tell us where the future is going. I don't believe the future is unknown. I think it is uncertain. And that's a difference between the two. And so when we're looking at destruction at this point, we're talking about, of course, the trade and tariffs dynamic has been highly destructive. It's been disruptive, but destructive in the form of relationships. I don't believe over the next 20 years that many of the relationships that we have damaged or severed will be restored. I think that trust is fundamentally at question at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And that changes so many dimensions of things that comes right down into our industry and how we think about things. We are currently in our advisory business, we are supporting one of the sovereign wealth funds in the world with our advice and the work that we do. And this is one of the funds that's, let's just say, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars, knocking on $1 trillion in assets. And
those aren't
there's
small
been
numbers.
Yeah, and they have very clearly begun the pivot away from the West, more toward the East.
Yeah,
and that was not in play a year ago.
Mm.
So they have made those changes, and I say that because it's not pure economics. It comes down to relational trust so often. And so I'm giving you some examples of disruption versus destruction and what that means. Yeah.
So in the face of destruction, I mean, you agree or disagree? Let me know what you think. Like, architects are usually kind of, oh, well, let's wait and see. Let's just put it AEC. Let's wait and see. Let's see what happens. Let's see how this plays out. And I mean, that could be its own, damning kind of strategy, right? Just waiting around to see, because like you said, like this is the next step. This is the next step. Like we had the pandemic, then we have all these existential crises, right? We've got AI, we've got several economics, we've got all these different things, and wait and see is a strategy. It is a choice to make. And we've seen that the way that that's played out time and time again in the industry. And I guess maybe you could say that it has been successful for some people to not like ride a wave that literally crashes and burns, right?
Correct.
But at the same time, there's a lot of different things going on in parallel motion, and you got to pick and choose as well as come up with a strategy to move or to wait. And I'm just curious, what do firms, when they see the destruction happening? I mean, obviously, there's kind of a paralyzing fear for a lot of them. Like, oh my gosh, what do we do? Let's just keep doing what we're doing. We hear that time and time again, right?
I spoke at the World Architecture Festival as one of their keynotes last year in Singapore, where they were holding it. They'll be in Miami this year, and I'm speaking. I've been invited to speak there too. So I'm like, really? They brought me back? I guess I did okay. Anyway, yeah, I don't know, that or controversial. But in the context of that, I was talking about that the definition of disruption. Most people don't understand it. The word is two words, disrumpere, and it means to break apart. To break apart. That's what disruption means. It doesn't mean to kerfuffle things or rustle the water or rearrange the furniture. It means to literally break apart. There's a destructive element to disruption. Indeed, right? And I think it's always important for us to intentionally disrupt ourselves.
So that somebody else doesn't do it to you.
Yes, yeah. It's important for us to disrupt ourselves, even if after breaking things apart and exploring and examining different combinations, we bring it back together the same way as it was before we broke it apart. But we are so fearful of the possible ramifications, much less implications, of what that breaking apart will do, that we just maintain status. We're kind of frozen in status. And most of it is fear driven, the fear of can I get it back together if I'm wrong kind of thing.
Right. The undo button, right?
So what I see mostly in the architectural, and of course we're talking in generalities because I could give you a list of firms that we see as positive disruptors, reinventing, reimagining the future of design. It's what I call design beyond buildings, using their abilities to do extraordinary things way beyond the traditional, SDDDCDCA process that's gone out there today. Mm-hmm. But in general, we're going to speak in the general deal and use a very broad paintbrush. The architectural out of the A and the E and the C are most inclined towards either head in the sand, this isn't really happening, this too shall pass, let's just keep going, or wait and see. Mm-hmm. And wait and see always results in you becoming a me too. Mm-hmm. At the back of the pack. Mm-hmm. Okay, I guess it's okay now. So I'll go from there. Because architects are not taught to be business people, and therefore to think about the logical progression of economics that leads to finance, that leads to the spending, that leads to the investment, et cetera, and therefore to make predictive analysis from those investments. We're just not. It's just not the way it is. I made a statement recently in a very large group of architects, and I got these unbelievable jeers looking back at me. And it was just simply that architects are not inclined to think futuristically. Hmm. And they were thinking, well, we do future design all the time. Design is this unusual static thing. At the end of the day, you design, you hand your models over, and somebody else bastardizes it and turns it into what they wanted it to be turned to, right? Yeah. You lose control immediately. And the question that I was posing the audience is that where you want to hang your hat? Is that where you want to put all your life, right? Mm. Or do you want to move up the scale in a different way? Yeah. So architects I think they're more struggling now than they ever have. Because I remember in 2018 at a Design Futures Council event, I posited that we must disrupt ourselves or be disrupted from external places. Yeah. I said it again in 19. I said it in 20 on a podcast, on a webcast. I said over and over and over again. And lo and behold, what has showed up? We have AI. AI is this extraordinary technology. I'm not afraid of AI. It is what it is. I believe that the ideal expression of AI is an interdependent relationship where it teaches us and we teach it. And there's this beautiful, it doesn't have to be this overlord kind of thing that the dark folks like to talk about. It's going to be an overlord. They're going to dominate us kind of thing. I think it's an exchange. But in all of that, we have been primarily disrupted from the outside. And completely new ideas about what design is for in the first place are now being brought forward. And we're realizing that we're confronted authentically with an existential period right now. Our predictions about AI and its disruptive effect is there's this initial kind of wave we're in because of the impatience of modern humans. Enthusiasm will be lost and wane around AI, but deep investment will continue, and suddenly it will all emerge again, and it will be the next massive leap. And when that occurs, all the pausers will be left in the dust. That's just what's going to happen. It's just, you can look at it in history. These are the patterns.
Let's take a quick break from the conversation to tell you about AVAIL. Is your team struggling to find the BIM assets they need? AVAIL's content management system simplifies access to all of your firm's content in one easy-to-use platform. No matter where your files live or what type of files they are, you can easily search and access them from AVAIL. Now, designers can consistently find and reuse all types of content. So what does that mean? Well, standards-compliant models and drawings are easier to create. The documentation process is less chaotic. New hires are easier to onboard. Projects are delivered faster with fewer errors. You get the idea. Visit getavail.com to try AVAIL for free and request a free demo. That's getavail.com, GETAVAIL.com. My thanks to Avail for supporting this episode of the Troxel Podcast. And now let's get back to the conversation. It's like the Gartner hype cycle, right? You get to that trough of disillusionment section of the hype cycle, and okay, we don't have to think about that anymore. Meanwhile, it is silently or just quietly plodding along with, like you said, a lot of investment and a lot of innovation going on to really prove, like once we've kind of gone through the throwing the spaghetti at the wall, now let's refine and iterate, right? And then there will be things that emerge that if you don't keep your eye on them and practice those things as they reemerge, you're gonna be left holding nothing.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And we think that the architect has the opportunity. The wonderful part about AI is you don't have to be a multi-thousand people organization to deploy AI into your day to day. So it's level setting the world in an interesting way.
Right.
Of course, there's a few firms that have incorporated AI into their mainstreams, and at this point are operating with human oversight on AI production. And it's extraordinary what's already been achieved, 40 plus percent profit margins moving up into the 50s and the 60s, beating the top 10 architectural firms in the United States with 30 people instead of thousands of people on multiple projects to win. I mean, it's a completely new world that's being imagined. And we're pretty excited about it. And we think that the results will be tremendous. I remember 2 years ago at our Design Futures Council event in La Jolla, we had Dr. Ed Feigenbaum with us, and Ed is he is the last of the original 14 thinkers, American thinkers in the 50s who brought what we call artificial intelligence to the United States. He was working with Herb Simon and Alan Newell, and that's when they published the first article. I think it was 55, and it mentioned this thing called artificial intelligence. It's the first citing of it in publication, the idea of artificial intelligence. And so Ed was with us, and we celebrated his 88th birthday. He was a graduate student at the time back then. He went on to found the computer science labs at Stanford, become the chief scientist for the United States Air Force in the Cold Wars, particularly in the 70s, the very heated part of it. Extraordinary guy. And I said to him, Ed, what do you think the future of this AI thing is? What do you think is really going to happen? He said, Dave, I thank you for celebrating my birthday. My family lives till over their 100. It's just on both sides of the family, it's wherever. So I'm guessing I'm going to make it to like 102 or something like that. Had a big smile on his face. And he goes, in the next 10 years, the cure to cancer will occur. And I said, oh, yeah, you think so? And trying to be polite, like, yeah, whatever. And I said, no, you really believe that? And he goes, oh, with a certainty. I said, what makes you so certain? He said, it's not an opinion. He said, now with the emergence of quantum computing, AI operating on quantum, we will finally find the needle in the haystack. He said, the cure to cancer is already there. We just don't know how to trawl the data appropriately. And now we're going to be able to do it. And he just had this confident smile on his face. And I thought, holy shamoly, this is one of the guys that started this thing, and he's speaking with such confidence. There was no hope in there. He's a scientist. He literally believes that. And it makes me wonder, if someone of that consequence is speaking so clearly and with confidence around this, what can the design community learn from that? And how might it best deploy AI, not to just get stuff done faster, better, cheaper, but to transform the design industry, to take its leadership role once again that it lost many years ago?
To rethink. Yeah, that's a really great point, and something that I was probably at one of those well, the La Jolla event. Sorry, so yeah,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
have
yeah.
name, you have design intelligence, designing futures council. You've got these. There's a lot of design and there's a lot of future thinking. But I think one of those events, it was like let's rethink what the business model could be because you asked such provocative questions. And a lot of great thinking happens in those and brainstorming because you've got some like purposed individuals in those around those tables, right? They're
Yeah.
driving at where are we going and how do we get there? And then you take that stuff back to a leadership team that's like, yeah, let's wait and see, right? And so there's a lot of this kind of, you hit these brick walls inside the organizations. And you said it perfectly a minute ago when you said, like, there's a lot of, they become the Me Too's, right? And I
Yep.
believe it was you years ago who, and this has stuck with me, is like, why do you want to be on some great, ENR list or BD&C list of top 500 firms? What you're 168 out of 500. Yay, right? No, you need to be top three or top five. Like if you really want, and that requires this rethinking so that you can reinvent yourself
Hmm.
and rise
Hmm.
from the ashes. If you've been around for a while, as the next version of yourself, and I'm curious what you're seeing people do in those regards to actually push the frontier of design to another level beyond the traditional three-phase services approach.
So it's a wonderful question. Um, we look at firms, those lists that you just mentioned, they're all around revenue,
Mm,
right? Yet, by the way, none of it's audited. It's what I report. So I could be lining up my kazoo and I get a
interesting.
number, right?
Yeah.
So it's not audited. You don't have to submit
Mm,
financial reports to get on that list. I always get a kick out of this. But on the other side, we look at firms. What is it's your impact and your long-term value
mm,
to society, to the industry, et cetera, that we're to the environment that we should be saying this is the number one, number two, number three firm in the world. Not revenue is a fleeting moment. It changes every year, up or down, at the end
mhm.
of the day. So I think our indices for greatness is wrong. We try to take US economic GDP and other growth factors and apply it to this cottage industry, which is called architecture, which what are there? 22,000 architecture firms in the United States or something
Mm,
like that. It's a cottage industry. I think the last number I saw, the average architecture firm is 3.5 people, right?
mhm. Yeah.
So it's like it doesn't even apply. It's what is. I look at a firm like Morphosis, who has been consistently innovating, experimenting, applying, learning. Kieran Timberlake, it's all about learning. Every project is about learning. What will
It's a
you learn on
laboratory.
this project? It's a
Yeah.
lab, it's a research lab for all
Right.
intents and purposes. It's not a cookie cutter. I can tell you that many of the large firms, I can pull into a skyline and see buildings go, oh, that's so and so, that's so and so, that's so and so, because of the same rectangular boxes with a twist
Hmm.
at the end of the day. It's not innovation. What changes the world is invention and innovation. That's where we get to. And that's why I believe AI is going to give us this unbelievable opportunity to level set the floor and let the smallest firm be the most innovative.
Mm,
We're very intrigued, for instance, with a firm that operates out of Cambridge, Massachusetts. The founders are both uh, fellows that came out of the MIT Media Labs. I don't know if you know these guys. So.
I have not heard of that.
Oh, well, they're just so. I'm just kidding, but I just think they're
I like
wonderful.
it.
They're just wonderful. I think they're under 20 people. It is unbelievable the thinking that they have as architects
Mm,
about the power of design and how they're leveraging technology and collaboration and client awareness into their work. And we're talking 20 people, and I'd put them toe to toe with any of the top 20 firms in the world.
yeah.
And
Interesting.
so greatness is being level set in a new way by, I think AI is going to really exacerbate that. Yeah.
It's interesting to think about the word innovation, which you just used, right? And thinking about it, does it always need to involve technology? Because I think we're talking about a multi-layered, kind of a multi-dimensional way of thinking.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. So we've defined, and I set this definition out a few years ago at a Design Futures Council event, because we use words and we don't know what they mean, honestly. Uh, what is innovation? Innovation is taking existing assets in a new set of combinations or factorials to yield a new outcome or result. Existing assets in a new combination to result in new things, right? Kind of thing. While invention is taken, it's nothing to something. It's taking there are no existing assets. You're inventing. You're starting something completely new.
Yep.
And the reality is almost everything we see is innovation, not invention. Very few authentic inventions have been brought forward, and even in pharmaceuticals, most of it is innovating on different assays. What do we say? Key pharmaceutical ingredients in different combinations to create different results, right? Kind of thing. Very little is inventional, but the world is wide open for more innovation to occur in architecture and through architecture, or at least through the thinking of architecture. Maybe not architecture itself, but how we think.
Yeah. Let's take a short break from the conversation to invite you to join the most influential technology leaders in the AEC industry at Confluence. Composed of in-person events and a podcast co-hosted by yours truly, Confluence is designed to foster conversations between AEC firms and technology companies so they can learn, share, and engage with each other to support industry innovation. Software company AVAIL, which creates content management solutions for the AEC industry, started hosting Confluence events in 2019 to understand what firms are needing, wanting, and thinking around technology. To learn more about Confluence, explore upcoming events, and listen to podcast episodes, go to confluence.getavail.com. My thanks to Confluence for supporting this episode of the TRXL podcast. And now, let's get back to the conversation. I think about kind of previous experiences that I've had in leadership and vision or lack thereof. I mean, you mentioned, one of the inventors of AI basically having a vision of where AI is going to take us, right? With a specific example around cancer. And I find that often lacking in AEC companies with leadership, right? And I say right, like it's common. You could tell me probably better than my leading question here, right? But I see a lack of vision a lot of times, especially when it's let's wait and see. Like that to me is just there's no vision of who we could be. And so I guess the question is, a lot of firms don't know who they want to be or aren't happy with who they are, but don't know where to go with that. And I'm just curious kind of what that stirs up for you when you have this great experience across the industry throughout many firms, and you see, I'm sure, levels of vision. And kind of, I guess I'd like to focus on the high vision, people who have this pursuit that they're after and they will stop at nothing to achieve it. What do you see is kind of the differentiator for people who think like that versus the Me Too's of our industry?
So thank you. What a great tip. And for our listening audience, we had no prep. I just showed up. He didn't send
This
me
is
any
how we do it.
questions. He
This is how
didn't
we
tell
do
me
it.
anything. So this is great. This is just wonderful. Anyway, so I believe that the difference between having a grand vision, an idea that could be, wow, that really is cool, to actually changing the world, to catalyzing authentic change, is investment. And so this is the problem in American architecture. I'm just going to speak to the American side. We do, we're in the UK, we're in Europe, we're in Asia, but American architecture is very focused on the capitalistic idea of billable hours. And so you come up with this bottoms up approach. It costs me this much for Evan, and then I've got to put this this overlay on top and put this break-even multiplier calculation. And so it's really Evan times 2.5 or 3, whatever your number is, right?
Yep.
And we try to achieve that and call that professional services. Very interesting, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
But the reality is most firms do not invest.
What's the number for like R&D in firms in the U.S.?
Authentically, what is that number formally, not this informal? There's so many skunk work projects. People, we've done a lot of work in technology in these companies, and one of the first things we ask to kind of level set is, what is your total cost of ownership of technology within the firm? Kind of get a funny, interesting look. And I said, what subscriptions do you have in place? And even the CIOs and they're like, that's a really good question.
They don't want to know.
I don't want to know, because every Tom, Dick, and Harry out there goes on the net and gets their own deal and puts it on the corporate credit card. And it's such a small number, doesn't get caught in finance. And boom, we have this giant cost of ownership going on.
Spend. Yeah.
Just this leak factor, I call it. But the reality is we're not really making formal, intentional investments towards transforming our firm, our practice, our industry. I remember a few years ago, I wish you would have been there because you could have helped me, but I presented to the large firm roundtable of CIOs and a whole bunch of other folks a proposition. And I said, why don't we all throw some money in a kitty? We'll create a little company, create a little LLC. And everyone will own exactly the same amount. You all get one share. Nobody is a dominant player here. Nobody can even buy a second share, even if they had money to do it. We're all going to put a little money in the kitty. And when we do that, we're then going to have a governance around that. And we're going to make a decision on what are the 3 things we want to research, invest in, and tackle. Whatever they're going to be. We're going to do this together, kind of thing, right? And it was a goat rodeo trying to get there. We didn't do it. And then a couple of years ago, they got together and they threw some money in a kitty, and I'm still waiting. It's been a few years. I'm still waiting for something, right, to come out of it. It's because we're not trained in the world of investment and finance and risk in this industry. And it's what's missing. We are missing a fundamental way of thinking about investment. And when investment is married to vision, extraordinary things come out of it.
Yeah. I think about what you just said, and I think, what's the risk of investing versus what is the risk of not investing, right? Those are 2 different things to weigh. And I think a lot of times people have done these pilot programs in their firms with human capital, right? Hours, FTEs, whatever you want to call it. Yeah. And they've failed because I think Nathan Miller was recently on the podcast. He said upwards of 90% of initiatives in the digital side of technology side of things fail because that's how it goes. And so they see that failure as a loss of investment, right? It wasn't a big investment. It was some time, and it was probably some people on nights and weekends trying to do something with passion, and everybody else looking from the side saying, well, yeah, let's see if this goes anywhere, right? And not jumping in and rolling up their sleeves and helping and getting their hands dirty, right?
Yeah,
but we see that over and over again. I love this idea of a goat rodeo.
It's just unbelievable.
I had to write it down.
It really is. There are so many problems that could be solved if architects would put their design thinking and some money together and do it. Just do it. It's not about giant software development programs.
Right.
It's about logic applied at the end of the day. And we're just not committed to it. But others, and that's what I've said, if you're committed to it, we'll self-disrupt. If we don't self-disrupt, we'll be disrupted by others. And that's happened.
It's very interesting to think about because the lack of investment is literally killing. I mean, if you're not growing, if you're not going somewhere, you are dying, right? Or you're just barely you're on life support at best, trying to keep things going. It's very interesting. Well, I have this this burning question, and so I want to play a game with you. I want to. You're a bank, Dave.
Okay.
And if an architect came to you, if a new firm came to you, I mean, I guess it doesn't need to be a new firm. It could be an existing firm that wants, in quotes, to reinvent themselves. Could they put a business plan together that would have a vision for the future? And I just kind of want, like, I want to treat this like an architectural crit. I want to treat this like a, what's the word? It's like a ruthless review of the industry. And because like we don't need to worry about hurting anybody's feelings because we're not going to name any names here. I mean, is you've already talked about this kind of lack of business sensibility, economic sensibility when it comes to firms, and I know that is a generalization, as you put it earlier, but could they put a business plan together? And I think what we want to weave into this conversation is, you mentioned it earlier, the value of this practice. Where is it? Where is the magic in the practice of architecture? And I it's probably not the financial side, but we have to use that to get there, right? So we have to
Yeah.
do that successfully to get there. Could could somebody pull that off today? Are you seeing any examples of that happening?
Yes, I think the most obvious example to me, and if you don't know these guys, you really need to, is the folks at Cove Architects.
Yeah, they've been on the show recently to talk about the AI
Yeah.
first practice.
So
Yes.
probably Patrick, right?
Yep. It was Patrick.
And these, here it is. They've come together. The first thing they said is, "We know that we don't know."
Mm.
And so it's an interesting statement at the Design Intelligence Leadership program that we teach into firms. The statement we make is, the first rung on the ascension to authentic leadership is knowing you don't know
Mm.
and saying so to others. You got to get to that place. And so they did that. They said, "We don't know, but here's what we want to do." And they were able to put a plan together, like you said, and to attract funding to be able to help underwrite their experimentation of AI within professional practice. And they've been able to do that. And that's resulting in some pretty cool things, I think. And I'm very proud of what they've been able to do. And it's a model that requires, first of all, authentic humility to say, "I don't know. I know what I know, but I don't know these things." A
This is like the Donald
vulnerability.
Rumsfeld quote, right? The known unknowns, the
The
unknown
known's unknown.
unknowns. Right.
Absolutely. But you have
Mhm.
to say it out loud.
Yeah.
I don't know, and I'm asking for help. And then you have to apply all the wicked intelligence that you have to yielding authentic, how shall I say, measurable output that is advancing an agenda, not just going round and round around the same agenda, advancing the agenda towards transformative outcomes. And that's what it takes. I think in any firm that is applying their design thinking in new ways will always yield a new business plan, a new business idea. I would love every firm to honestly be an incubator.
Yeah. I was just
They've
going to
been
use that word. Yeah.
they've been taught how to think.
Hmm.
They've been taught how to design and create,
Yeah.
but we're
And
not
yet,
doing it.
yeah, we don't
And
apply it back to ourselves. We apply it to
no,
every project and every client out there. And practice of architecture is a design problem. It literally is, right? And but we treat
absolutely.
it as a known, and we continue to just say this is the machine. We're going to keep it running for as long as possible. And what we're talking about is there is a different version that gets us somewhere else with more value, with a bigger impact on the communities that we serve. Should we treat our practice like a design problem?
We've been encouraging through our advisory work an MEP firm, a national MEP firm of consequence, we think, over this last year. It is generally stated, known, that in the 50-year life cycle of a building, of the total cost of that 50 years, 10% is design and construction, 90% is operate, manage, and maintain. The architects of that 10% get this tiny little sliver of that
Yep.
10%, right?
Yep.
At the end of the day, the engineers get also a tiny little schmuck. And if you're an MEP engineer, you even get a tiny little thing, right? Majority of it goes to construction and building product manufacturing, end of the day. And so we have said, why do we turn over these unbelievably beautiful designs? They get built and we get our check and run for the door.
Yeah. Next project.
Yeah.
Right.
Why don't we knock the wall down between the 10 and the 90 and not designed to build, but designed to operate?
Mm-hmm.
The design to operate model would change fundamental design most of the time.
Sure.
It would make us, I got to eat this dog food. I'm going to be
Right.
really careful about what I put in the dog food, the kind of thing. And if we did that, then we change the economics of design from project revenue to recurring revenue.
Mm-hmm.
And the valuation of your company goes through the roof on recurring revenue. We're talking about the fundamental changes that are opportunistically available right now to the design industry.
Right.
To reinvent the entire industry and the economics of it, which makes it really compelling if I'm a student and I want to go to architecture school, but it's like, yeah, they're a bunch of lame architects. No, suddenly I'm an architect. I can come out and I can own the 50 years, not the 18 months.
Right.
On the front end. Do you see where I'm going with this?
Yeah,
right.
absolutely.
So it's completely rethinking industry. It's like the guys that did Uber, right? Standing on the corner, sweating, wondering when the car's coming. Finally shows up. I finally get one. I get in. It stinks. The guy doesn't speak my language. There's this plastic in front of me. I don't know where he's going. I don't know when I'm going to get there. And he goes, wait a minute, why am I doing this? Why don't we change the whole paradigm and I'm in charge as the passenger? And they did it, flipped it upside down.
And what made that possible was this new device that has not been out for, well, but that happened, right? And that enabled a new way to approach
thinking. That's right.
Right.
And here we are with active AI as the new device, the new technology that's available. What are architects doing to exploit that in a positive way towards transformative, reinventional outcomes for not only themselves, first of all, for yourself, to thine own self be true, fix yourself, and you'll be much better addressing the markets. And what are we doing with that?
Right.
As opposed to, oh, it's really cool. I'm going to use Midjourney and now see 1,700 iterations of this building. Really?
Right.
That's not the point.
That's the smallest thing you could do with it.
It's the worst thing you could do.
And that's also the thing everybody has access to. Everybody in the whole world could do that.
So think differently, architects, engineers. The design community they've been given a gift, but most are frozen in the fear of wait and see.
Yeah. Let's take a short break from the conversation to tell you about something that I think is pretty great and you might be interested in it. And that is my exclusive newsletter available only to paid members of TRXL Plus that I call Leadership Edge. If you're looking to stay ahead of the curve in architecture and technology, Leadership Edge delivers insights that you won't find anywhere else. Why? Well, because they are my deep dives into the podcast conversations, just like the one that you're listening to in this episode, to give you an edge on the industry. Each edition of the newsletter provides key insights for forward-thinking leaders seeking innovation in AEC who are short on time, offering the context of each conversation without the need to listen to the full episode. I've actually designed them, though, to keep you updated, spark your interest, and encourage you to tune into the full episodes if those ideas resonate. And the best part is that they are packed with actionable takeaways to help you navigate the future of practice. By becoming a paid supporter, you get Leadership Edge delivered right to your inbox, and it's a direct way to support my podcast while getting exclusive, valuable content to sharpen your leadership mindset. You can join today at trxl.co and start receiving my Leadership Edge newsletters. Just click the subscribe button either in the upper right-hand corner or at the bottom of the page, or you can visit the link that I put in the show notes. Thanks. Now back to the conversation. You brought up this idea of a different business model. I had a conversation about exactly that. It had to be in the first 10 episodes of this podcast with an architect from Indiana, Donna Sink, where we talked about that kind of idea of turning a transaction into a relationship. We feel like the design process is a relationship building
Should be.
because then referrals, and of course it is. And then, like you said, we get that last check, the keys go to the owner, and we run for the hills because we've got more projects in the pipeline, et
Or we're
cetera, et
afraid to
cetera.
get sued. So I want to put distance between us. Yeah.
Right. And then it becomes a reactive kind of engagement. It's like, oh, something went wrong, right? Okay, so talk to the contractor. Please point. Look, I'm going to look the other direction. And the idea of becoming proactive about building operations, building maintenance, tweaking the prototype to become an even better fit for the client so that they have even better organization with this new tool that they have over the long haul. And I think that there's subscription models, like you said, recurring revenue, turning a, a very one and done project into recurring revenue. I think it's a fantastic idea. And that's just one idea that there is as possibility in our industry to completely change how we approach where the value lies in what we do.
hmm I, 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 talking about that, knocking the wall down between the 10 and the 90%. These buildings, with all this unbelievable design intent invested into it,
Hmm.
are passed over to the CBREs and the JLLs and the yada yadas, all this, the alphabet soup, right? And at the end of the day, they have no idea. They have no clue what the design intent was.
Right.
And we hand it over to these folks who charge the owners unbelievable amount of money,
And
right?
badmouth the architects. Yeah.
And then they jam in a building automation system and say, okay, it's all set up, push the button, and we'll get any problems that come out over time. But what would happen if the MEP engineers, which is mostly what BAS is for, is if the engineers that designed it operated it with intelligence to be proactively in front of everything because they know the life cycle of pieces
Hmm.
and parts. They're sensitively aware of humidity and volume and temperature, and I could go on and on and on. They get that stuff. Do you think that the building owner might be better served? Do you think that the building owner, the folks that designed it for that owner, assigned it for longevity and for optimization? Do you think that they might benefit by having the designer be the operator? I don't know. I kind of think so. I
Mm.
kind of think so.
Seems like a good
And
fit. Yeah.
and it changes the economics for the design industry, which would make design even that more attractive because we're seeing a downturn
Mm.
in the number of students running into the design schools. It's just coming down. We need to show that it's worth something. There's gold in them Bar Hills. Come
Mm.
and hang out with us. Let's do something extraordinary. But it takes the design community to step up and set fear aside, like my friends at SOSO, who are reinventing the expression of design, as I keep calling it, design far beyond buildings.
Mm.
It's very, we just have such opportunity that we're worried that we're squandering.
Yeah, I guess start to wrap up here because my kind of final, prompting or question is really around what is your hope? And I think you just kind of alluded to it, right? What is your hope for AEC in the light of the latest existential crisis of AI?
My hope is that the A and the E will come more and more together instead of this three-headed thing that's
Mm-hmm.
going on.
Mm-hmm.
I think that the design industries need to converge more instead of architects thinking engineers work for them. We got a kick out of several years ago when Moishe Safdie got up at our event. He received our Lifetime Achievement Award, and he showed his Cheng He Airport, the one with the water that comes down through the middle.
Yes. Yep.
And right as he's putting up the deal, he says, and of course, everybody knows it's him. And here he is, live and in flesh, standing. He's got this giant picture up behind him on the screen. And he goes, "You see this design? I've received so many accolades and awards for this design, but it would never, ever have been possible without my friends here from Borough Happold."
Mm.
An architect, an architect is praising the engineers. Unbelievable, right? But what he was saying was, we are wholly interdependent.
Hmm.
So if these design professions would start operating in an interdependence with the wild creativity of the architects and the discipline of the engineers, we could literally change the world. Instead of being disrupted by others, we will self-disrupt iteratively to higher and higher outcomes. And that's what I want to see. That's what I want to see happen. And I want to see the design programs within schools starting to bring more and more of integrated design and the disciplines together, because that's where things already should be, much less where they are going.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I had a lecturer in one of my courses I was teaching, probably 2018-ish, and Alvin Huang he teaches at USC.
Oh,
He
yeah.
has his own synthesis design studio in Southern California. And he shared this story with the students about working with engineers, right? And I think, a lot of times it's an adversarial relationship in that, if an architect has a great idea, who's going to push back? If you don't push back on yourselves, which a lot of firms do already, oh, the client will never go for that. We don't even let the ideas out the door right before we're already stepping on them ourselves. But then the next door is an engineer saying, oh, you can't do that. And then there's a contractor, oh, you can't do that. And what you're talking about, this kind of integration of these different design and engineering practices, he said that the engineers that I like working with are the ones who are up for an interesting challenge. And he gave
You
specific
bet.
examples. And the engineer that he was sharing with this project that he was sharing was like, I can't wait to try to
Yeah.
tackle this, to
Yeah.
figure
Yeah.
this out. And that's the kind of thing that you're talking about, right? It's not,
Mhm.
and we get to pick, in the consultant arrangement, architects do get to pick who they want to work with. And I think a lot of times the people picking are looking at who's got the lowest fee, not who can provide the most value. And that's what we're trying to do too. We're trying to provide the most value to our clients in the
Yeah.
architecture side of things. But a lot of times it's just, well, what's the bottom line? What's the number that we're
Yeah.
making those decisions based on?
And instead of selling value, we're selling rates.
Hmm.
And there's a different way to do it. Of course, there is no new thing under the sun, according to Solomon the Wise 3,000 years ago. And he said, that idea that everything comes around. I'm thinking of Ove Arup many years ago in his first speech, and he talked about total design.
Mm.
Have you ever read that? Have you
I
ever read
haven't.
that
I'm gonna
speech?
I'm gonna write it
You
down.
got to
I
look it
may.
up.
Yeah.
It's called the first speech or key speech, and he gives this idea of the completely integrated disciplines coming together to provide total design. Gosh, I mean, why aren't we doing that?
Yeah. Why aren't we
Right?
doing that? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It's exciting adventures ahead. Albeit I think many will not make the ride. They're going to fall off over
Mm.
time. Disruption is not coming. It's already here. It will only exacerbate further. A reinvention, a re-identification of the design professions is already underway. And we are actually excited about it. That's why we're called the Design Futures Council. We're speaking always about the future of design, not specific to architecture, but to all the design professions. How are you migrating into the future, exploiting technology as appropriate for planetary and human benefit at the end of the day? And we're very excited about what the future holds for us. No fear in that. It'll be scary, but no fear.
So maybe that's the answer to this question, but maybe there's another version of it too, and that because we talk about this multidimensional relationship of leadership and sustainability and business model and team makeup and integration with clients or with consultants. Um, if somebody heard what you just said and is inspired to do something about their current state and they want to take their state from 0 to 1, whatever that is, whatever that version is for them, where do they start? I mean, this to me is kind of like what is your prompt to them to take action?
Be the Uber guy. Step back and look at the commonly experienced repetitive problems and step out of yourself and ask yourself, if I could go 360 around this and I had no constraints whatsoever, money, time, talent, how would I do this differently? And it will result in a complete revolution of the design industry. We are stuck in a paradigm so deep, we don't even know we're in that deep pit. And if we just get our head out and go, this is insane. This AEC continuum is so broken, and we've invited so many of these parasites in, whether it's the legal and the insurance community or whatever. It is unbelievable that we can't do what we're supposed to do. And so if you step out of that and ask yourself, hey, if somebody gave me $100 million, would I do this differently? Or would I just hire a bunch more people and try to become another Gensler?
Yeah.
Could I do this differently with no constraints? And that's where you begin. That's what my friends at SoSo did. They stepped back and said, there's a better way. Why don't we step out and take a look at it? And it, what is it? Voltaire, Mark Twain plagiarized him and said, common sense is not so common. And that's what we're looking at right here.
You're full of great quotes, David.
Common sense. I read a lot. I'm an avid reader. So common sense is not so common, and that's what we need to start applying is good common sense to the reinvention of this industry.
Well, I want to share two cliches for a minute here to kind of wrap up. And the first one is you cannot get to where you're going if you don't know where that is, right? You have to set that end state. Of course, you can adjust, course correct along the way. And
yes.
But you got to start with the end in mind. You cannot get there. And the other one is, and this was shared with me recently, was you're driving forward as fast as you can while looking in the rearview mirror. That is not the way to get where you're going. You are going to crash into something or you're going to drive off the road, right? Your focus has to be on where you're trying to get, and you can't let anything stop you from getting there. I mean, there's so many times it's like, the best example I can think of in the moment is like 2009, switching to Revit. Some companies like, oh, we've got to do this. We're going to do the project from beginning to end. And at some point, someone raises the white flag and says, export to AutoCAD, because we know that, right? Instead of working through the issues and investing in our future, we're going to surrender to the process because it's difficult, and we're going to jump out, and then we're going to get right back into the wait and see kind of mentality about it. And that is not the way to do it either.
I know that every firm gets up every morning and goes, I got to make money today. I've got employees, I've got overhead. And so thinking about some of these things that you and I are talking about is overwhelming. It's all kind of cool when I'm listening to this. But in reality, I got bills to pay. I got stuff to do. I got employees. I got to go out and try to get another gig or whatever, right?
Yep.
My advice to that is this: bifurcate. Take some of your people, run your business as you're running it, and create a parallel path. Borrow resources from the pool, put them in here with clear sprint level assignments. Sprint, not long. This isn't a long race. These are sprint level assignments, and begin to reimagine and rebuild a parallel reality for your organization. Eventually, you'll merge it over. And you'll have changed it, because you can't just stop and reinvent.
Yeah.
And so therefore most don't do anything, but it doesn't cost you that much, if anything, really. Take 3 of your smart people, put them on a path, let them run for 90 days with clear deliverables and objectives. At the end of that time, look at it, make some decisions, rotate some of those folks off, rotate some other curious people on, let them run for another. I'm telling you, in 12 months, you'll have new solutions and maybe a completely new organization.
Yeah, and I would add to that sprint should be a defined amount of time, and it should be repeated, and it should be stuck to. I would say 6 weeks, and only plan for those 6 weeks. And when you get to the next sprint, redefine where you're going. If you need to make modifications, that's when you do it. And you continue to operate like that. Because you can't say, let's set a 1-year goal and we'll break that up into 6-week sprints and never readjust. You are going to learn things along the way that will force you to readjust, and you should use that as an opportunity to do so. I think that's a valuable advice.
And don't Don't create a parking list of, I'll get to it. Don't create the parking lot of list that says, oh, we'll get back to that. We'll get back to that. Because you know what? You won't. Take the 6 weeks, identify the problems, solve those problems, move on.
Yep.
And just extraordinary things can happen. And what you and I just said is common sense.
Yeah, you cannot eat the whole whale at once, right? You've got to eat the whale one bite at a time. That's what
right.
That's what those sprints are designed for. I love the advice, Dave. Thank you so much for this conversation today. I think it's been super valuable and not just something that I hope people will say, oh, that was a nice conversation, but that'll actually inspire them to do something. And you were the man to do this today. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much. It's an honor to be here with you, and I will do it again.
Thanks to our sponsors, and thanks to our members this week. Find out how you can become a member at trxl.co, and I'll talk to you again next week.